Hello and good day. ShawnJ here, and I'd like to welcome you to Underneath the Shade Tree. On today's episode, I get to sit down and chat with Lonnie Payne-Clark and learn the impact of growing up in the Jim Crow South, living through the AIDS crisis of the 80s and 90s, and the longevity of finding love not once, but twice. So grab yourself a beverage or a snack and join us underneath the shade tree.
How are you?
I'm good. What about you?
I am just peachy, thank you.
Perfect. Good.
So, you were raised in South Carolina?
Yeah. I grew up in Columbia, South Carolina, in the real old segregated South.
Ooh. So, what was that like?
Well, so we grew up truly in Jim Crow South. So I remember being a kid, and we didn't think about it because we lived, where you lived in the black part of the city, and we lived in a section that was called Sugartown. There was Sugartown and Happytown were the two black communities, and we were in an unincorporated part. We were like just west of the capital city in South Carolina. But in those days, our section was unincorporated. So you knew everyone. It was a typical black community where everyone looked out for everyone else.
Yeah.
And we didn't know what we didn't know. I mean, we knew that there were certain parts of town you shouldn't walk in because the rowdy whites might jump you, and call you the N-word and all the other things that, growing up in that region you would experience. And we grew up basically in, my parents were working class. They weren't teachers or mailmen or preachers, in our community during that time. Those were the elites, if you will, of the black community, and everyone else fell underneath that tierage. And we were very much aware of that. I mean, that was also during a time when you were, as a black person, you were aware that the lighter your skin, you were treated differently by other blacks because of the color of your skin. And that's something a lot of people, younger black people, I feel don't understand that, we had our own caste system back in the 50s and probably before that. But anyway, so with that said, it was a great growing up. We had interesting family friends, regardless of whether if you had plenty or had little, everybody visited homes. When my twin and I would, we were a unit, so we didn't know we were gay in those days, but we were occasionally harassed by kids who called us punk, which to this day, I find that word to be the worst word I can hear coming out of a black person's mouth. Probably the same way that some whites don't like the word faggot, but punk reverberates with me to this day because it always had this less than sense about it.
Right.
So anyway, we were in our preteens, early teens. We were teased a little bit about that, but we were never teased. We were teased separately because anyone knew if they teased us both at the same time, that was a possible fight. We were never opposed to. I'm saying if you pick on one of us, you're picking on both of us, and we would fight. And we're talking about the 50s, the late 50s, early 60s. But anyway, our parents were cool. I don't think we knew what we were then. I mean, we certainly hadn't come out or experienced any sexual activity until like our college years. But with that said, we very much always felt like we were different than the other folk. We were studious, and we occasionally got the, oh, you must think you're white because you're trying to, you don't talk like us. And we're talking about in our, teenage years now with this. So there was always a little bit of suspicion that I had and my brother had coming from the Black community when we were growing up, especially in our teenage years. But anyway, we grew up, we both went to college, and that's where we came out. And we went to the school, the University of South Carolina, so we were not too far from home to go to school. And so that was great.
So question for you. So
yeah.
Within the Black community, did you feel like you were still part of it, even though you were made fun of because you talked proper and because you were different? Did you feel like you were ostracized, or did you still feel like you were connected?
No, we didn't feel ostracized, and it was never the adults, it was the kids.
Okay.
It was never the adults, always kids. The adults, we felt very nurtured.
Oh, good.
And especially in the church, because we both were like church musicians, we felt, we felt, we didn't feel different than or other than. We felt normal in church.
Okay.
And that's not to say that we didn't think our behavior was any different than the other guys, if you will, except that we didn't care for sports. We liked to sew. We made puppets, but to answer your question, the sense of other came from kids, not from adults.
Okay. Which is typical kid behavior.
Yeah.
Until you know better.
Yeah.
So where did you pick up your love for music at? Because you love music, especially opera, right?
Yeah. So when we were in high school, we were in when we were in junior high, we started in band, and when we got to high school, we decided we didn't like band, so we got in the high school choir. And by then we were going to an integrated school. We were bused to a different school, and while we had great music in our Black high school, I think we had great exposure to. We had two historically Black colleges in our town, Benedict College and Allen University.
Okay.
And our music directors in high school, in freshman and sophomore year, took us a lot of events to the two colleges. So we got a great exposure to the beauty of how our Black music can be presented and can be heard. Great exposure to a different way to hear spirituals. For us, our church we did hymns, just the standard 4-part hymns, because we went to a Methodist church. Of course, the Baptist church was the other Black church in the community, and they were a little bit more spirited, if you will.
Yes.
And so we had that separation in our community, but going to seeing performances at the two historically Black colleges, we got to see the art form of how people take our heritage and really lovingly treat it, with amazing spirituals being sung, great different types of singers. And so we really liked that. So when we were bused in our junior year to the white high school, we immediately gravitated towards the choir and the drama program. And that's kind of where we found our people. I have great memories of the friendships that my twin and I both made in the theater program and in the music program. We were never treated as soloists. It's interesting. In high school, we always sang in the choir. We never got any solo parts. And so, we never thought about that. We enjoyed music, we enjoyed our friends, and it was a lovely experience. We didn't know and I say we because my twin and I had the same trajectory. We both realized when we got to college that we had solo voices. And so we both started taking private lessons in college, and then ended up getting out of education degree programs and getting into music programs. And that's where the love really, I mean, the love was always there, and it just kept blossoming.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you kind of touched upon it. I don't know if you wanted to go there, but it was an all-white high school.
Yes.
And you were two Black American boys.
Yeah.
Who had solo voices but never sang solos.
Right. And
this was like the 60s, 50s, 60s?
This was, yes, exactly. This was 66, 67.
And so, having grown up during that period, Jim Crow stuff,
exactly.
What do you think that was? Or did they just, was it an oversight?
No, it was not an oversight. It was, I think the whites didn't know. Majority of the whites had one opinion of what Blacks were, and we were different. And so they didn't know how to navigate with us. And so it was definitely not an oversight. It was, we aren't sure we can let them do that. Maybe they don't have the skills to do that.
Yes. Yes.
And I'll tell you a funny story around that. So our course director in high school was a really good music teacher. We felt very encouraged by her, even though we didn't get solos or whatever. But when I went to college, and all states have an all-state course that it's a high school level. And when I was a senior in college, the all-state course was being held on campus at the college that I attended, the University of South Carolina. And my choral director, his name was Arpad Daraj, he was going to be the guest conductor for the all-state course. And they were working on a Zoltan Kodaly piece called the Te Deum, which required 4 soloists, bass, alto, tenor, soprano. Our choral director asked me to do the bass solo. So as we were, in all states, the best of the best in the state as far as the high school singers. And so all of a sudden, the afternoon we were doing one of the run-throughs, my old high school music teacher, choral director, came up and said, "I didn't know you had a voice like that." And it was the funniest thing because my brother was in the audience when she walked up, and he was also a very good singer. And we both looked at her like, well, it's the same voice we had 4 years ago. So.
It's amazing how the obliviousness of it is sort of like, maybe if you had saw us and then tried to hear us, you would have noticed that.
Yeah.
It's like overlooking of we're here, we just got same skill, sometimes even better. So that's interesting that came kind of full circle. Yeah. And the hope would be that teacher would go back and maybe be a lot more aware of the people and the students in our class to go, I overlooked them. Let's not let that happen again.
Yeah. The one thing that I will say so growing up in that part of the South during that time, and sharing with you that we grew up in Jim Crow and we were bused and all this kind of stuff. By the time we went to the University of South Carolina, we were in the first group because my brother went there also. We were in the first grouping of Blacks that went to the college, to the state university. And we got there, there had been Blacks there maybe 2-3 years before we got there, but we were still the oddity on campus. And once again, the theater program and the music program was where we found our home, we found our people. And in the music program, sexuality wasn't an issue. Skin color wasn't an issue. Your talent was the issue.
All about the voice.
Yeah, all about the voice. And there were other remarkable Black singers that we all kind of ended up at the college at the same time. And the opportunities that we had were really great because we never had this issue of all Black. It was the castings were done without thought to color. So, and that was in our core programs, because as you know, most college choirs, you have a show choir as well. And we were doing stuff in the show choir in addition to the big choir. And the stuff we were doing was never cast by color. It was cast by, this is what I need and this is what you can do.
Amazing.
And this was in South Carolina. It was incredible that we had this experience within basically 5 years where we went from where we weren't given opportunities to where the only thing that was limiting us was our own drive or skill level.
Yeah, it's amazing when the opportunity presents itself and it's not closed off to folks.
Yeah.
What is allowed to happen naturally is amazing.
Yeah.
I've always wondered about, like, my mom was probably a teenager during the 50s, and then, no, not probably, but she's born in the 40s. So she was in that era, and I never really got to ask her questions about, what was it like to be in your 20s during the 50s, and then having a son, and your 2 sons in the 60s, like, in St. Louis, Missouri, like, what is that? Never got that opportunity. So, like, that's why these kind of conversations are really, precious to me, because, like, you never know what someone's life is like until you actually sit down and have a little chat.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and it's funny you should mention the St. Louis connection with you, because I went to grad school in Chicago, and the circle of people that I navigated around were pretty much all transplanted from other places. And one of my buddies was a guy who grew up in St. Louis. And I never realized that St. Louis was Southern. I thought it was Midwestern.
It's located in the Midwest.
Yeah.
But its mentality and mostly structure are those from folks who migrated from Mississippi.
Yeah.
Because that's where my family is Mississippi. So you have that same, everything.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. As a matter of fact, this might sound shocking, but I related more to the people, especially the Blacks from St. Louis, than I did from the Blacks from Texas.
Oh, I can see that. I can see that. Yeah.
And if you're ever in Texas who's watching this, no shade to Texas.
No shade, but we're just keeping it real. That's what it is. It's like that was your experience. Yeah. And Texas is probably a great state. I don't think I want to live there, but go for it.
But no shade. Yeah.
But how did you end up on the West Coast?
When I was finishing up my graduate work at in Chicago, and my first partner, Joel Swanby, was working on his doctorate, and we both were somewhat tired of living in the Midwest. We hated the winters in Chicago, and so after 5 years of living there, I had decided I wasn't going to go to Europe, where a lot of my friends who had studied opera were going. I really wanted to stay in the States. And so after I completed my coursework for my master's, and I like to say I completed my coursework. I never got the master's, I just realized that I need to try something different. So I started working for AT&T. And this was like in the 77, 78, when they were taking people with liberal arts backgrounds. And so I got a job with AT&T, or Illinois Bell in this case. And Joel was still working on his doctorate. And one day I said, I could transfer with AT&T to California, to San Francisco. He said, let's do it. And that's how we did the move. It's like we both were at a point where we wanted to try a different city. And with one of us having a sure job in San Francisco, it made sense for us. And we already had a couple of friends who had migrated out from Chicago. So that's how we did it.
So this is like the late 70s, early?
So we moved out here in 81.
Okay. So San Francisco was the gay mecca then.
Yes. Yeah. So we had visited San Francisco, so 81. So probably 78, maybe, yeah, even 77, I think we visited San Francisco. So every year we visited San Francisco. We had some close buds who lived in the city, and we always came out to San Francisco. So we kind of knew this is where we wanted to settle down. And so by 81 or 80, when we made the decision to make the move, we got everything lined up and we moved out May of 81.
Sweet. I think it's cool when you said AT&T, but it was actually Illinois Bell.
Right.
Because I remember we had Southwestern Bell in St. Louis, and then the names started to morph into different things and finally became AT&T. So it's like the history of these companies and our lives is interesting too.
Yeah. I worked for Southern Bell. I worked for Illinois Bell. I worked for Pacific Bell and AT&T.
I remember Pacific Bell. And, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So, did you retire from AT&T, or what was your next venture?
Okay, so the next venture, so AT&T was very good because basically it was the kind of job where I made the kind of money that we got to do what I wanted to do. And Joel also started working for digital equipment, or DAC, which is, so we got out here about the time that the technology was beginning to percolate. And so we had jobs that supported our lifestyles. We like to travel and this kind of stuff, but it didn't support our souls. No matter what I did within AT&T, at some point, I knew ultimately it was a job, it wasn't something that brought me joy. It brought me a paycheck.
Right.
And so during the course of that, from 81 to the 90s, I worked for AT&T, and really I left AT&T because of health, because of having an AIDS diagnosis.
Mm.
So it wasn't where there was a career path. There was just that I was of that group that was very ill, starting in the 90s, and I got to the point where I couldn't work anymore, and so that's what happened with that. I'm always real clear to tell someone back in probably 94, 95, I was clearly given less than 2 years to be alive. And those protease inhibitors said, hello, we're going to tell you, we got another path for you.
So, I think that's great, because a lot of folks, so you went on the AZT, right?
I did everything.
All of that damaging stuff.
AZT, all of the legal stuff, all of the illegal stuff. There was a drug going around called Compound Q that was underground. I took that. In the late 80s, we were taking anything to see if we could sustain our lives. So.
Wow. So we don't hear that. I think that's, I wouldn't say fascinating, but it does fascinate me, because there's like the generation then that lived through it.
Yeah.
And then like now our generation, I've always found that sometimes there isn't. What's missing is this ability to come together and lift each other up as we climb. Is the old phrase. It's sort of like the mentorship is kind of gone, because how we communicate with one another has changed so drastically. I mean, like you said, we would go out to a bar, we'd pick up a phone, and now everything's so mobile that we don't even truly, I think, interact with one another. And I think our younger generation are missing out on that element of true camaraderie. And
but that's also how you build family.
Yes.
That's also how you build your family of choice. I mean, when I say in those years, we were when we got our HIV diagnosis and then ultimately AIDS diagnosis, you shared information. If your circle, if someone knew of a drug that was working, wasn't working, if someone tried AZT, and in those days we weren't sure of the dosage. It was like there was a dosage that was kind of talked about, but then in your tribe or family or friends, people would talk about, well, this is the amount I was taking, or this, and so you shared all of this information that was health related, but you also looked after each other. Yeah. So if someone got to the point where they couldn't take care of themselves, someone in the tribe stepped up. And we did that because we met in the bars, we met in the dance clubs, we met in the gyms, and that's where the friendships grew.
Right.
And I have friends today that I've had for 30 years because I met like at a gym or in a bar or in a disco. We all love the fact that our origins go back so far. And it was well before getting online and having, you know, the Facebook and the Instagram and the texting stuff. We didn't text, we called.
Yeah. I do miss the element of just calling. I called a friend one day and they go, "You're calling?" I was like, that is what these things are actually for. So it was a little funny. But wow.
Yeah.
That is amazing.
Yeah. And you know, for me, one of the I feel like I have this long history. You know, I jokingly say that at this time of my life, I'm in the long sunset of my life, because there's a lot of different experiences I've had, and I wouldn't trade any one of those experiences because they make me who I am.
Yes.
I'm not ashamed of any of those experiences, and I'm proud of most of them. I'm proud of most of them. Yeah, it's amazing how I just said that. Because, you know, I feel like you have to live a life and try lots of different things.
Yes.
Or else you're squandering the life.
Yeah. Because I mean, you're not gonna ever truly find perfection, and I think that's what a lot of folks, they have this hunt for perfection, and then if something doesn't meet it, it's kind of discarded, and it's like coming close to perfection is, in my opinion, perfection, because like you don't know what you don't know if it's not there. So
exactly.
It amazes me, and like hearing you talk about like college in South Carolina, Chicago, you know, and the migration out here, it's like, and then living through AIDS, you know, it's just, we don't, oh my gosh. I mean, I do part of this already, but like to hear it again, and it's like, and even more nuances of it is like the tribe created, and then looking out for each other. Like, I know there have been stories told about that in movies and stuff like that, but I think for me, as a Black gay male, I don't always hear those stories. From our people, like from our group, because it's sort of like, and I think I wish we had more of that, because I think that would have helped a lot of our Black gay community with thriving and surviving, you know, when it comes to all of those things.
It's so that when you say it that way, it brings back memories of me. So when I think of, so I moved out to the Bay Area in '81, and I had more Black friends by the time I'm here in San Francisco than I had like when I lived in Chicago. And once again, most of my friends I met in the gym or the bar or the clubs, but mainly the gym. And I think I had this base of about 6 or 7 Black buddies, and we still had our other friends, but we would get together without the white friends. Let's just call it what it is, you know. We would kind of like have the other family meetings, you know, and we kind of like maybe once a month or every other month got together. And once again, no shade to our white families, but we had this sense of, we knew we had a shorthand.
Yeah.
We had a shorthand. And we didn't have to explain anything. We could just talk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's a renewal. So it's sort of like
Yeah.
you come back and you get your cells refilled, and then
Yeah.
you go out into the world and you deal with all the isms that the Black gay male has to deal with. And then at some point you get depleted, and having that core group to go back to and go, girl, do you know what this food did? And just be able to say all the things that you may not feel free to say in other environments.
Exactly.
And
for example, one of my favorite things, and I still say this today, I still count noses when I walk in a room. And I think you might know what I'm getting at. But you walk into a room, you're saying, so who's the other Black person? and you do that because that's family. But what I noticed, so my generation did that, and say, let's jump forward to say the year 2000 and on. I saw less of that. I saw less of where Blacks wanted to acknowledge the other Blacks in the room. It was almost like this, I don't know you. There was this weariness or leeriness, which used to annoy the heck out of me, because it's like, you know what? We're the same. It doesn't cost you anything to do that nod and say hi. I'm not getting in your business.
Exactly. I ain't getting in your business. I ain't trying to get in your pants.
Right.
I ain't trying to steal your man.
Right.
It's the brother nod. It's sort of like, hey, I see you. Because when shit goes down, guess what?
Yes. You gotta look for the brothers.
Exactly. I still do that to this day. I walk into a room. I don't know if it's conscious or subconscious, but at some point I clock everyone and go, oh, I'm the only Black person. And then I move on. But I instantly am able to go, oh, okay, there's three of us. And then, I think it's just something that we do innately, like you said, that.
And where I still see it more so now than any place else, when I travel, if I'm in a foreign country, I have seen it like in Rome, I've seen it in Thailand, I've seen it in various places where, especially if you're doing something that's kind of touristy, as soon as you spot another Black, there's a nod. I mean, it is just so satisfying that there's a whole generation, our generation, who gets that. And sometimes it leads to a conversation. Sometimes it leads to just, I see you, I got you, and you keep going on.
I think that's the I see you, because sometimes as we walk through the world, we feel invisible.
Yeah. Because
we aren't seen. I remember my ex in Seattle, we'd be walking and a Black guy would be walking this way, and we do the, so is that the Black thing? He was like, I go, yes, it is. And you ain't part of it. So get used to it. So you've been through a lot, boo-boo. And when I met you, you have this beautiful spirit that you're very welcoming. And where does that come from? Like, where would you say that stems from? Like, I know like the South, there's a lot of that, but sometimes life can tarnish a lot of that so that you don't feel as open. Like, did you go to a part where you were like, fuck everybody? Or have you always been this, I want to say Papa Bear, because you just have this,
and that's interesting, because I've heard that before. For me, I just feel like life should be embraced, and people should always feel comfortable, and you always give people a chance to be comfortable. If someone starts acting a fool, you need to be aware of that too. You can't do this with blinders. But by the same token, there's a richness by sharing and being sure that people are taken care of. Not taken care of from a viewpoint of, I'm going to tell you what to do in life. It's like, you know what? Whatever you're doing, if it's good or bad, you know, I'm going to be the same person. And if something is going on, I feel inclusion is much better than exclusion. It's real easy for me to say, come on over or join us. It's probably harder for me to ask, may I join you? But it's easier for me to be in a situation, oh, come on, yeah, join us. Because I feel like that's for me, I want you to know, my friend Marcus Jordan, and I have to say his name because when we lose people that we love dearly, we have a responsibility to say their names. And my friend Marcus would always say, is it a good witch or a bad witch? We'll always say hi, but then the conversation comes up, well, is that a good witch or a bad witch? And if someone has some intel, they might seem like they might be a bad witch, but it's a good witch. Then you trust that. And so over the years, I've realized the more you open yourself up, there are a lot more good people than there are bad people. And so I would rather open myself up first to have you prove me wrong than to close myself off. And you know, sometimes you do it and you realize, well, we don't really have anything in common. And that's okay. But at least the door was open to receive whoever that person was. Yeah. So yeah, you call me a Papa Bear. I take that with pride because I think more people should be that way. You're kind of a Papa Bear, but I don't think you realize it because I've seen you with some of in your groupings of friends, and you're sort of like, you do similar behaviors that I do.
Well, thank you. I strive to be that way because of having experienced that push away where I can be in an environment that I was told was loving and accepting and oh, they're gonna love you or they're great people, and I walk in and I feel the complete opposite, and it's just I've experienced that, and I never ever want to be a person who does that. So that if someone comes to my home, I want to make sure, you know, I ain't gonna lie, I got my particulars, which everyone does, but my hope is that when you step through my front door that you feel instantly welcomed unless something pops off, you know, but my hope is you walk in and you're able to feel like, oh, I can chill here for a while. And I think that's my goal even when it comes to the real world. But I will admit I have walls. When I step out, I'm not one to, like you say, come on over. Like I'm like, I don't know if I want you to come on over. So it's just, and I'm not really good at approaching people either. So it's one of those things of like, I'm in this, I can't approach you, but then I can't exactly invite you over unless I'm hosting something, right? If I'm at a gathering, usually a theater function, I'm in my element. So I'm totally like open. So I'm going to say, hey, come on over. But when it's me being me, I'm a little bit more insulated and private to that extent that, you know, but, you know.
So let me ask you this. Do you, when you're thinking about your parties or gatherings or things you're doing, do you think of, I think this person and that person will have a good energy together. I'm going to do something where I'm going to have them together. Do you do that?
I haven't match made, if that's your question. But
not a matchmaker, a community maker.
I do. So back in Sacramento, when I lived in Sacramento, it was like the early 90s. My friend, me and my roommate, Carlos Ramirez, rest his soul, we would have these gatherings. And it was always Memorial Day. We would have a barbecue and Labor Day. And the guest list for me was always bringing together people who wouldn't normally come together to see how they meshed, what came out of that. It was always not like I was like going, like I was going to sit back with a cup of tea and go, ooh, this is going to be fun. It was really about bringing people together who wouldn't normally probably come together. Because like I had theater friends who were of all backgrounds, and then I had work friends who were like usually heterosexual women, and then I had what was the other element? Then like the bar friends, like people I met at the bar. So it was always like, and this was like early 90s. So like it was fascinating to get people. And then my roommate had a different set because we were both former military. He was still in the military. I was from the military. So he had invite some of his military friends. And it was just nice to see people who you didn't think would gravitate to one another would be like fascinated with each other's background, which has always been my thing, is like going, we all have something to learn from one another if we're open to it. And even if it's only for a brief moment in time. And so I think when I do put together a function, even now I think about that as they go, oh, I don't want that energy. Oh, that person's a little too much, because I think like a person who's too much for me, I know they're going to be too much for this person because this person is like, they're quiet and it would tear them apart. So like I'm aware of that stuff. And in Seattle, I did the same thing. It's like one friend was really like, she goes, I can't do gatherings. I just can't. But she would show up. And I was like, okay, but so I was really aware of that. So I would make sure that there were people similar to her in essence, so that she wouldn't feel alone and a party of people. And I think folks tend to think I have friends who are exactly like me. No, I don't. Like they're totally, some are opposite, some are quiet. And I tell folks, I am an introvert with extroverted tendencies. But I'm not really an extrovert, but because it's honey, that's exhausting. I don't know how people do it.
Oh, I know. I keep thinking about when you invited us to your housewarming, and your housewarming was a classic example of the type of gathering I would put together. Bruce and I didn't know anyone there except you.
That's true.
But everyone there, because they were a friend of yours, we immediately felt that we had something in common. And so conversation was very easy. There was no sniffing. It wasn't like, so what do you do? Where do you live? It wasn't any of that. It was like, ShawnJ, you must be a good person. What do we share in common? And so I loved the conversation that evening, because once again, every place that you sit for a piece of conversation, there was a new energy you were introduced to. And that's kind of what I like, but I thought you do that better, because for me, I take my core family and then add maybe a piece of spice externally. You just kind of like put them all together.
Well, and the thing is, I don't invite folks to my home who I don't want their energy in my home.
Hello.
And so energy for me is very important. And so I'm really, really aware of that. And I think that grew from my time in Sacramento, because there are people who we would invite and it was not a good fit at all. Yeah. And we would have this thing called game nights. And so folks would come over, and we discovered rather quickly that this person don't fit at all. And so I'm really, really cognizant of that. I don't want certain energy in my space. I just don't. I'm purely selfish for that, because I know that it's going to reverberate, or it's going to hit another energy that I know don't put up with that. And then, and I remember growing up, every family gathering that was really, really big, it was in a park. Somebody got drunk. Somebody got pissed off because somebody was drunk. And then there was a fight. It was always, and that was just a family. So I'm always aware about mixing very, very carefully of what I want in my household. And I think that part, I knew everyone, and I knew who would, in essence, gel well together because they were family for me. I think for me, basically, if I invite you to my home, I kind of consider you family, because I don't it's just how I roll. So
and I guess it's funny you should say it that way, because when I really think about it, I don't invite anyone, not only to my home, but like if, we're going out and doing like a dinner gathering someplace, and if I'm coordinating it, I'm very controlling. It's like, I know every energy that's going to be around that table. And if there's an energy that I know is not going to work, they don't get invited. And I don't have any embarrassment about that.
No, and you shouldn't. And you shouldn't, because it's your world. I think you should control it for your own well-being, mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally, all of that. Because we don't need that.
Exactly. Yeah.
Sweet.
Yeah.
So you were in a relationship with, you said Joel.
Yeah.
Now you're in a relationship with Bruce, who I know.
Yeah.
So, and both, I don't know how you do it, but both were long-term relationship. One was one. I'm like, I don't want to say secret, but what have you learned from both of those?
Well, so for me, I'm a nester, and I can't date anyone who's not a nester. And so when Joel was my second boyfriend. I met him in college, as compared to Play Buddy, if you know what I mean.
Yes, I do.
Since this is going out to a variety of people, I just had to say a Play Buddy. We have a different term for that. But I've had very few boyfriends, and because I am a nester, and so if I feel, I'll walk you through this. So Joel was my first. We were together for 17 years. We ended our relationship because he died. So I had a couple of years where I was a single guy again, and I dated. And whenever I dated, I could tell within a second date whether or not the person was a nester. Or let me rephrase that, a nester that we could build a nest together, as compared to a nester where you come to my nest. And I'm not a big coming to someone. I don't mind coming to doing a stayover when I was single dating. But if I'm working on relationship, ultimately it's going to be where both of those nests are going to come together. And if that's not going to happen, I'm surgical. I said, nope, this is not going to work. I dated two guys for maybe 3-4 months each before Bruce and I got together. And those guys, ultimately, I knew we were not going to be able to make a nest together. And so finally I said, nope, this ain't working.
So what was it? Because I'm always curious about that, because I am a single man, and I've been single since my ex and I separated in 2005. And so I never make it past that window, because like there was a long relationship, and now I've been single for a long period of time, and I'm still open for that other relationship. But how did you bridge being long term? Then like what did you know about these men, or what was it that was revealing about these men that said, oh yeah, thanks but no?
Okay, so I'm going to add 3 into the mix. So there are 3. Oops.
No, baby, go right ahead.
So the first one, so after Joel died, I was joyless. I mean, life was interesting, but I was joyless. And I dated this guy. I picked him up we picked each other up at the Eagle. And I had seen him around at some of the at some fundraising events, if you will. And so I could judge by the caliber of who he was that, it's going to be interesting. He was a younger person. And when we started dating, I realized he brought nothing to the table other than his youth.
Mm.
And I went, no, I'm not anyone's sugar daddy. That doesn't work for me. Um, and I don't need someone on my arm just because they think they're attractive, you know. And I saw that real quick. Then I saw another guy who was extremely successful, but he was looking for someone to come into his space. And he had a lot more zeros in his bank account than I had in mine. And I was okay. He just had a lot more. And he was used to someone moving into his world. And I don't do that. It's like, no, we can create a world together, but I don't move into your world. And that fella brought me a lot of joy. I mean, he brought joy back in my heart. So that was a hard one to realize. If we can't make a nest together, I don't have a future here. And that was the one that I would, even to this day, when I think about this particular person. And so Bruce knows all of these guys, and because you know me. It's what it is. I'm going to tell you about these people. And so this one, the one who really wanted a wife more so than he wanted an equal. And I only do well with equals. So when Bruce and I started dating, his family checked me out. My family checked him out because I'm a family guy, you know. All of the things clicked. Bruce and I shared an apartment together, but we lived out of each other's apartments for a while. And then we said, nope, we need our own space together. And that's what I always need. I need someone who wants to create a nest with me. Not moving to my nest or me moving to their nest. And then the other stuff we kind of work out, as you know. I feel like you have to always be able to be who you are.
Yeah.
Someone can't be there trying to change you, and you can't be trying to change them. And anytime you feel that someone's trying to change you, the warning signal should go on. It's like, no, that's not me. You know? I think that's why with Joel and also with Bruce, we've never tried to change each other. We kind of like say, we know there's a lot of things we can experience in life. There can be some things you're going to do, I'm not going to do, and vice versa. But at the end of the day, we're sharing this life together as compared to stepping into someone else's life, or someone saying, you know what, it would be much better if you did this, or maybe you need to think of a career change. It's like, nope, that's not here.
That's good.
Is that too much sharing?
No, I think that's always my hope when someone is just sharing their truth, their raw, because I think I was in a somewhat similar, I wouldn't say similar situation, whereas I was in a relationship where we were pretty much equal. He had dollars in his savings, but then I was making more dollars in like my job.
Yeah.
But we were pretty much equal in that sense, and like we were at each other's place so much that we end up building something together. The thing that probably I own this, that we really weren't truly a match because we were foundationally different, and how we approached the world, life, and like his relationship with money was different than my relationship with money. I was a single mom who raised 3 boys. He had a mom and dad. So our perspectives were very, very different.
Yeah.
And our love language, was very different. And like he needed a different kind of love. I needed a different kind of love. And it just sort of like, I feel that I am, what I say is, my light is my light, and you should come with light. And I felt that I was dimming my light to make him feel comfortable, not knowing that's what I was doing, but
Yeah.
hindsight, after you leave the relationship, you're able to reflect on it. And I realized
Yeah.
there were times I was turning down opportunities and not doing things with friends, and your friends, and I had close friends who was like, ShawnJ, I don't think he's right for you. And you're in love,
Yeah.
but I love him. And I'm a good friend, Kyle, and I love him to death. And Kyle was he's like, I don't think that's a good fit, but if you're happy, I'm happy. And he's never hidden his feelings, but he never treated my ex any differently. It was just sort of like, ShawnJ loves him. I don't see why, but ShawnJ loves him, but he stuck it out with me so that the subsequent several breakups that we went through, but in the final breakup, he was like, I was just hoping you'd find it. And I think, and I don't hold any ill will towards my ex. It's just we were not right for one another.
Yeah.
And I think that's the growing that I hope people do when they end a relationship. Is just sometimes you're not right for one another, and sometimes it takes time to realize that.
Yeah.
And sometimes it doesn't. And I have always told friends who are in relationships, I go, so learn from me. Don't let it take 9 years. You already see these signs. Nothing's going to change.
Yeah. Yes. See that. Now that to me is the real kernel of this conversation. The person you see when you first start dating is still the same person. They aren't going to change. And so if you're going into the relationship thinking there's going to be change, you're going to be disappointed. And the other thing you said that I didn't realize that we both have the same issue. I'm also big on the light. I have my own light, and my light's going to shine. And if anyone doesn't like my particular type of light, that's okay. But it's my light, and you cannot change my light. And if I think you're trying to change my light, or if you're putting me in situations where I have to change my light, I have to walk away. Because that's that's me.
Yeah.
And you can't change me.
No, and I've learned that. I think that has probably been why I haven't been in a relationship since 2005, because that very fact is that I think I dimmed it for so long.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just like, I'm burning it and letting it shine, and sometimes I don't allow anyone into that shine.
Yeah.
And part of me maybe I'm a little afraid. I don't know how to because of it. And so I know it's there. It's just sort of like, I think I need someone with their own light that I can totally see it, right? I think I have to be able to see other people's light. So if I can't see your light, I think that tells me that something's not quite where it should be. So that, I run the other way.
If you can't see their light, they're hiding something from you. That's what it is. And I do that with friendships. If I don't see the light, we might be acquaintances, but I won't use the word friend with you. Because I got to have all the light around me has to be on all light that complements.
Yeah.
I don't need no dark blues. I need brightness.
And I know sometimes there's shadows in that light, which is fine because I have friends who go through challenges in their lives and who have difficulties. And I have no problem with that because at least I know your core light is one of truth, authenticity, and striving to do better. It's just those other ones where I'm like going, there's a filter on your light, and that filter is making me feel a certain kind of way.
Yeah. Let me ask you this question. So for me, a core value is truth. If I ever catch you lying to me, I'll never trust you again. I'll never trust you again.
Baby, that's my biggest problem.
Yeah.
Because I don't trust. I mean, like I trust to a point. Like
Uh,
that was an issue in my relationship was trust. And
uh,
the person lied once. I said, okay, I'll let you. I'll let that one pass. And they lied again.
mm,
And I was like going, there's a pattern here. And then they lied
yeah.
again. And then I think it was the third big lie. And we bought a house, moved in together. And it was like 6 months in, I found out something. And I was like, yeah, that want to work, but we just bought a fucking house. Now what am I going to do? And the funny thing about that whole experience was he didn't know that I knew.
Uh-huh.
And so that's the thing I think for me that a lie always, I have this spidey sense. I can tell when someone's lying to me and it pisses me off because sometimes I wish I didn't because
Yeah.
I think, oh, I like this person so much, but they're lying so much to me. And
Yeah.
it always starts off with, hey, handsome. I went, no one starts anything with hi, handsome, hey, good looking. Like I
Yeah.
instantly go, you want something. And so
Yeah.
the truth, and I've had people lie to me in my life. So the truth is really a big thing for me. And if you lie to me once, and of course it depends on the lie, but I don't
Uh-huh.
need to lie, period. Like if I'm going
Yeah.
to be, hey, Lonnie, I'm running
Yeah.
25 minutes late. Not,
Oh, yeah.
not,
Yeah.
oh, I'm just walking out the door and I'm just putting my pants on. Like I remember back in the day, I would tell those lies.
Yeah.
And I eliminated lie telling because I'm going, what am I gaining
Yeah.
in this at all? And so I don't lie. And it's sort of
Yeah.
like, it's hard because sometimes I want to lie, but like, I just want to go, yeah, I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
No, I don't want to do that. And I think trust for me is big because I don't trust, I trust instantly, but then
Uh-huh.
there's always this little spark of like, keep an eye out, keep an eye out. And it's just so far I don't think I've been lied to by friends and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
so far it's good. But yeah, the truth. The truth.
And you know what's interesting? I think what that also speaks to. So when you asked me about having this chat, I know you well enough that I could tell you these are where my, so I have some questions. And I know that you are receptive. If you ask me something, that you are also respectful that I might have questions and might want to drill down a little bit more. And I don't have to kind of go, oh, I'll do this, but and there's sometimes you engage with people where they'll ask something of you, and as soon as you start drilling, they go, oh, no, you shouldn't be, you're questioning me now, and it's like, no, I just need to find my own truth about what's going on. And I tend to surround myself with people that know I can ask that follow-up question.
As well, you should. I think that's the thing that annoys me with folks when they go, if you ask something of someone, they have every right to ask you follow-up questions,
Yeah.
especially if you haven't been clear. And I think somewhat this has been quite the conversation. If you have anything else you want to share, feel free. Any life lessons that you feel are worth sharing.
So I do have one thing that I realized I didn't mention. So, I talked about family. We create family or tribe, because tribe is one of my favorite words. But I also feel like you always have to be open to sometimes realize that your ultimate family might not be your birth family. And I say this only because what makes me the person I am is because my first partner's family, Joel Swampy's family, his mother, Ethel, his dad, Julius, his brother, Mark, and his other brother, Paul, their wives, from day one, I was brought into their family. And I was brought into their family in 1976. And Joel died in 1995. That is my family, my nieces. Just because Joel died, my family connection didn't die. And sometimes as gay men, we forget to honor this new family. You know, they talk about when you get married, you marry into a big tribe.
Yeah.
Well, when you fall in love with someone and keep house and grow old together, you're also part of a tribe. And you have to honor that tribe that you're part of. You can't say, oh, well, that's not, you know, I don't really connect with anyone else. Because that's one of the biggest gifts that I think life has given me, that even though my last name isn't Swanby, I am a Swanby. Yeah. And they live the life. My family lives a life that makes me so proud. You know.
Is that the one you go back east to visit during?
Yeah. And my niece, you met my niece and her husband and my grandnephew when we did the protest.
Yes.
Because they live in Oakland. And my brother and sister-in-law, we do trips together because that's just who we are, you know. And that's a richness that I just loved in my life.
And you appreciated it and respected it.
Yeah. And that's why it's still there.
Yep.
Yeah.
You did not take it for granted.
Yeah.
Oh, look at you.
I'm so glad you did this, because you actually got me to think of some things that maybe you and I could talk about. Probably wouldn't be able to share as smoothly with someone else. Especially talking about my growing up. I mean, that's one of those ones where I always say I don't remember growing up. You know, well, because it's harder to explain when you have to fill in the colors.
I see. Yes.
Yeah.
That is interesting, because like when you talk about the Jim Crow, and then like now, like you've seen change.
Yeah.
And you've seen where things haven't really changed at all.
Yeah.
And a lot of folks are in this blind spot is the right word, but they're in this area where like they're going, but the civil rights happened. It's like, yeah, but that don't mean nothing changed.
Right.
Which is
right.
You know, we didn't have video recorders then, and now everything, that shit was still happening.
Yeah.
And I think, having the path that you've had and to see that, it's like, I could only imagine, what does that feel like?
Well, I just think that if videos and phone cameras would have been around in the 50s, you wouldn't have had lynchings. You wouldn't have had people just completely brushing stuff under the carpet, because there would be no trail. If someone had an accident and died in Jim Crow South, a black person, we're talking about black people here, there would be no record. Pretty much like the whole lynching in oh God, where's the place where they had this massacre of blacks? Oklahoma. That's something that where I grew up in South Carolina, we never heard about that growing up, because there was no press to report that kind of stuff. Thank you so much for asking me to do this.
Well, thank you for being a willing participant with questions.
Good.
I so appreciate you greatly.
And you want to hear a coincidence?
Yeah.
Today is Joel's birthday. Hello.
So, okay, that almost would be, yeah. That's serendipitous. Yes.
Yes.
Happy birthday, Joel.
Yeah, there you go.
Never met you, but I see the joy that comes from this man's eyes to know that you were a loving spirit. So, yeah.
He was, yeah. Yes, indeed.
Wow.
Well, friend.
Darling, give my love to Bruce. And
I will.
And the puppies. And
All right, well,
I'll keep you posted of how this goes.
great. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Smooches.
Ciao.
Ciao.
Thanks ever so for joining us underneath the shade tree. If you enjoyed the show, please click like and subscribe, and be sure to join us next time. And remember, every day above ground is a gift, so let's do our best to make it matter with grace, courage, and no regrets. Now go be fantabulously fierce.